Hello and welcome to my channel Chai Samose. So today we're going to discuss about a very unique story of a criminal, a serial killer who is still a mystery. He never been caught so far. He's known as a Zodiac Killer, America's most wanted serial killer. Let's start. Uh, In 1969, a crazy serial killer became terrorizing Northern California, looking a trail of blood, fear, and messages in his wake. He claimed to have killed at least 37 people, but the police could never identify him. He taunted investigators and the journalists with a letter, chipper, and threats. And to this day, Zodiac Killer remains one of the most infamous unsolved serial killer case in the history. And this is the story of Zodiac Killer. In our today's podcast, we dive into a chilling and mysterious story of one of the America's most notorious killer. We explore the timeline of his murder, cryptic platter he sent, the suspect he left behind, and why decade later no one know who he was. Let's start with his first murder. The Zodiac killing spree began on December 20, 1968 in the rural part of Vallejo, California. Betty Lou Jensen, which is 16 years old, and David Faraday, 17 years old, was sitting in David's car when they was ambushed by a man who shot them both at the point blank. Despite initial investigation, authorities had little to go on, and at the time, there was no reason to believe that it was a work of a serial killer. It wasn't until a month later when the Zodiac Killer sent a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle claiming the responsibility for the death. This investigation began to consider this attack a part of his spree. The Zodiac letter was claimed to have killed many more, made it clear that he relished into terror he instilled. In July 1969, the 4th of July, just month after the first murder, the Zodiac strike again, and this time at Blue Rock Spring Park in Vallejo. Darlene Ferrin, 22 years, and Michael McGow, 19 years, was sitting in the parked car where a man approached, shot them multiple times, and then walked away. The killer didn't steal anything, leaving the victim for death. One of the survival testimony, miraculously, Michael McGow survived the attack through gravely wounded, and he was able to describe the killer as a white male around 5.8 with a short light brown hair. This was the first clear witness account for the Zodiac and proved vital in narrowing down the research. But despite this information, the killer was still a ghost. A week later, a Zodiac sent another letter to the press boasting about the attack and promising more murder. This is where the infamous taunting began. The Zodiac was no longer just a murderer, he was a showman desperate for attention and control. On September 27, 1969, the Zodiac killing took a bizarre turn at Lake Berisua near Napa, California. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia and Shepard was relaxing by the lake when a man with a distinctive hood with a closed circle symbol approached them. The killer tied them and then brutally stabbed them both multiple times. Before fleeing, killer took the time to draw his famous symbol, a circle with a cross through it. The Brian car door on the Brian's car door. Zodiac also left behind a note claiming responsibility for the attack and challenging the police, boasting about how he would soon collect slave for his afterlife. Brian Hartnell survived this attack and gave a detailed description of the killer, which helped the police generate a sketch of a man. This was one of the rarest instances where the Zodiac was seen, and his confidence, almost theatrical behavior, raised more question about than answer. The last known victim of this Zodiac was Paul Steen, a cab driver who was shot in a cold blood on October 11, 1969, in the middle of San Francisco. What made this murder especially chilling was the boldness. The Zodiac killed a man in a busy city street in a broad daylight. It was his last confirmed killing. A witness later reported seeing a man leaving the scene shortly after the shooting. The killer had the audacity to walk away, disappearing into the city. Despite numerous police investigations, the Zodiac identity remained a mystery. From the very start, the Zodiac interaction with the media was unlike any other. His first letter, sent in July 1969, include detailed confession for his crime and the list of demand. He wanted his letter to be printed, threatening more murders if the press didn't comply. It was clear that he thrived on attention. But the Zodiac letter weren't just about the bargaining. He included intercept chipper that he claimed would reveal his identity, taunting both law enforcement and the public. The most famous was the Z340 chipper, which remained unsolved for over 50 years. In his letters, Zodiac would often leave a cryptic message like, "I like killing people because it is so much fun," adding twisted scene of enjoyment to his crime. It became a game for him, one in which the police were losing. In 2020, after years of silence, a term of code break finally cracked the Z340 chipper, revealing a taunting message that mocked the authorities. But the chipper gave no clue about his true identity. And even though the Zodiac Killer cryptic puzzle was eventually solved, the mystery of his identity remained unsolved. The suspect, over the year, there was a numerous suspect, and the most famous is Arthur Leg Allen, a convicted child molester who was closely connected with the crime due to proximity to the killing and the odd behavior. But despite extensive investigation, no concrete evidence linked him to the murders. There are some theories that some investigators believe that Zodiac could have been a police officer or a war veteran or even a disgruntled civilian who with a deep need of recognition. Others suspect Richard Gakwosi, a journalist who worked for a local newspaper and reportedly have similar handwriting to the Zodiac letter. In recent years, law enforcement have tried to use modern DNA technique to track down the killer, identify DNA from letter and crime scene. But no definitive match has been found. While the breakthrough could be just around the corner as of today, the Zodiac remain unknown. Zodiac Killer have become a cultural icon from a book to movie, documentaries and podcasts. His story has captivated people for decades. It's not just the crime that fascinates people, it is the puzzle he left behind. In a way, Zodiac Killer identity is as important to the public as a crime themselves. His ability to outsmart the police and taunt them for years has created a chilling mythology. The question still remains, who was he and why he never caught? As we close this chapter of Zodiac Killer story, we left with more question than answer. He may have killed only 5 people, but the mystery surround him has kept as captivated over 50 years. We will ever know his true identity, only the time will tell. So, guys, what do you think? Could the Zodiac still be out there, or he had died long time ago, taking his secret with him? Let me know your thought and your view on this in the comment. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for next episode of Chai Samose.